Pokémon is going to leave a lot of milestones for this review series. The first I should mention being that it's the start of me looking at cartoons made outside of North America. Pokémon as a franchise is made in Japan, as can be plainly seen through its worldwide success. I'm hardly a connoisseur of anime, I don't consider myself an otaku or anything, and I like this series based on its action and charm, not exactly what country it's from. If you're expecting this to be a full-on analysis of what it adds to anime and Japanese culture, I say this very nicely, you're not in the right place, I'm just throwing that out there. Another thing that sets this apart from the last two shows is that it's an adaptation. Pokémon was developed by game developer Satoshi Tajiri and fully realized in 1995 as a video game series, and it got popular enough to warrant an anime as well as several other spin-offs, but I digress. I bring this up because video game adaptations tend to have a bad reputation since there are certain elements in an interactive experience that you can't emulate in a scripted production, among other problems. I'm proud of the Pokémon anime for avoiding this stigma, partially because the anime was the most advertised and well-remembered part of the franchise when it exploded overseas in the late 90s. I'm a simple man. I think Pokémon, I think Ash and Pikachu, not Red and Charizard.
I picked Bulbasaur.
Good for you! The third and biggest change this will bring to these reviews is that it's only part of a full series. The anime has been around since 1997 and still produces about 50 episodes a year to this day. I don't have the time or patience to watch almost 2 weeks worth of television, so I'm just sticking to this quaint little first season of 82 episodes! They really knew they had a hit on their hands! Might as well go through with it, it's still under my 100 episode limit. And by the end of this review, I'll let you see if I felt all that watching was worth it, and if I'll continue on at some point. A challenger wants to review... Story! There's an overarching story across Season 1 of Pokémon, commonly referred to as the Indigo League arc. Just like in the first generation of games, Ash Ketchum sets out on his Pokémon training journey at the age of 10. His job is to capture, raise, and train for battle wild animals known in this universe as Pokémon. However, he overslept on the day he and his rivals set out, and he doesn't get any of the classic starters, Bulbasaur, Charmander, or Squirtle. Instead, Professor Oak gives him an unstable Pikachu to befriend and advertise to the Americans, as he travels across the Kanto region to become a Pokémon Master. Along the way, he meets Team Rocket, a gang of Pokémon snatchers, and gym leaders Misty and Brock, who join him on his travels. That's some setup, told across roughly the first 5 episodes of the series, and it mostly stays that way for the next 5 years before certain characters are rotated out. Like with the games, I'm glad it gives off the feeling that the protagonist is, pardon my choice of words, evolving. Ash starts off as a nobody with a disobedient mouse, but he gets less brashy and egotistical with the help of some new friends, and a Pokemon he catches becomes stronger and more obedient, generally. When Ash goes back to Pallet Town at the season's climax, all I'm thinking of is how strong he and his rival Gary have gotten. However, this arc isn't without its story problems. A large portion of the episodes are filler, serving no real purpose to the larger plot. These filler episodes are generally fine, but don't serve more purpose than to show off some more cool Pokemon, and validate that one kid who got a Mr. Mime card early. Plus, the tournaments at the Indigo League and their aftermaths could have been presented across less than 7 episodes. I enjoy the season finale Friends to the End all the same, but it doesn't try to hide the fact that it's padding. Despite some nitpicks with the storytelling from a culture I'm not used to, I'd say this season's told rather well. I personally watch the English dub most of the time, and although it's clear that dub writers in the 90s didn't take their jobs as seriously as they do today, I was able to follow what was going on at all times, and that's all that mattered. Characters! Character-wise, we've got a rather basic hero protagonist in the form of Ash Ketchum, perfect for 1100 episodes, it should be noted. I like his arc of learning there's more to Pokemon than winning and being the best, but he otherwise stays simple, likable, and relatable. His first Pokemon is Pikachu, who's basically the series mascot, and I'm alright with that. He is an adorable little fella, and he can brighten up even the weakest stories. His other original companions include Misty, a water Pokemon trainer who gets into fights with him often, and Brock, a rock type, and my favourite character in this season. At least when he's not fawning over everything that doesn't have a Y chromosome, he serves as a nice adult head of the group, and is the most likely to stand up for a Pokemon or look for help. There's a good reason he stayed by Ash's side for 13 years. Another group you can count on seeing in nearly every episode is Team Rocket, consisting of Jessie, James, and their talking Meowth, who spend their time planning ways to kidnap Pikachu. Who boy is my opinion on them complicated. On one hand, I like how each of them has their own level of individual character, with Jessie being nasty, James being flamboyant, and Meowth being snarky. Plus they can work as comic relief villains when the literal A-plot feels a little dry. However, they're a very painful reminder of the show's repetitive hallmarks. They recite a 30-second long motto in every episode, and I feel their roles in the concluding Indigo League episodes are a waste of time. Sure, it's good to keep Ash and Pikachu on edge, but they mess with the pacing every time. They won't just go blasting off again. Their boss is the head of Team Rocket, Giovanni, who occasionally calls in to scold them for their incompetence. He makes a great villain, and I hope they go somewhere with him 20 years ago. Another chip on Ash's shoulder is Gary Oak, his rival trainer who's far more successful than him. I can't help but like him despite portraying a lot of the very generic arrogant jerk traits. It's kind of fun seeing just how far he's getting and how irrationally upset Ash gets with that. Gary's grandfather is Professor Oak, an eccentric Pokémon professor who's somehow supportive of this random kid over his own grandson. He's about as situational as Ash's mom, who's rather sweet as far as cartoon mothers go, even though her country and time period make it very clear she can't do much for the series. Rounding out the human characters is Officer Jenny and Nurse Joy. They're mostly fan service, but I really like the joke of them being just a title in every city because their families are so similar. I slightly prefer Jenny as a character since she tends to get more involved in stories she's a part of. Lastly, the kids who only appear for a few episodes each. Todd, who is mostly put in to advertise Pokemon Snap, and it's clear they didn't know what to do with him since he gets 2 goodbyes. Then there's Richie, serving as a more friendly rival to Ash in the closing episodes. I like him, but wish he was more distinct from Ash. Okay, now it's time for Pokemon, and there are a lot, 150 in this first generation to be precise. I'll just point out some of the more interesting recurring ones. Going in series order, Charizard's an overrated dick. He's fine in his Charmander form, but him not wanting to do anything but laze around and or meet equally strong Pokemon gets very irritating. Please tell me he gets better after this season. I've seen hints of that. Then we've got Squirtle, a pretty cool dude. He and Bulbasaur serve the same roles as being Ash's other lucky starter catchers. But come on, I can't resist a turtle with shades. Ash's first catch, however, is a Butterfree, which he raises fine for a while, but then tearfully has to say goodbye to. It's a great episode, but the rest of Ash's team doesn't really have much going for it. Remember when he caught a Krabby? Remember when he caught a Primeape? I don't either. Team Rocket have an Arbok and Weezing, who never really tickled my fancy, but I understand they're meant to be more threatening. Brock has a Vulpix who's just about the cutest thing ever, though he specializes in rock types like Geodude and Onix. A Jigglypuff follows the gang around, putting everyone to sleep with its music, and she's also cute and funny. Best Pokemon character of this season. Misty's got a pretty dopey Psyduck who serves as an extra bit more comic relief, and a baby Togepi to tease Generation 2, as well as some other water Pokemon. Last of all is Mr. Mime, who becomes a servant for Ash's mom, and it's a good thing he's a Kanto-only character. I don't want him to wear out his welcome. Then you've got glimpses of Mew and Mewtwo. Again, not my favorite Pokemon from a design or personality perspective, but I can see how they add to the overall mythos of the series. That's a good thing with Pokemon this generation, they always add something new to the table. Writing! That segues nicely into what I think of the overall writing quality in this season. Like I said, the pacing is rather slow for an action show, but given it's based on an RPG, I understand that it'd have to go roughly the same pace as its audience would. There are certain episodes I just found to be a snore fest, however, but I'll get to those when I get to them. In terms of character writing, there's definitely an attempt to make everyone gradually learn and develop, even if not in the right ways. The word-based jokes in this show were mostly added into the English dub to appeal to 9-year-olds, but I'll admit, I giggled at some of the puns they spewed onto the script. The more physical humor is very Japanese. Stuff like characters falling down when confronted with bad luck would be harder to make funny in an American show. The action scenes, in this case the Pokemon battles, gradually get better as the season goes on. For very serious reasons, they shift from predominantly flashy visuals to dynamic ones, and I'm happy to say I can feel all the weight and impact in these later battles. I'm not very big on action, but I know when there's genuine effort put into it. As for the season's softer, more emotional moments, oh, they hit hard. The song that plays during the anime's sadder moments, Tears After the Storm, is just gut-wrenching. Overall, the series soundtrack is nothing particularly strong to me except the theme songs, being mostly renditions of the old-school Game Boy music, but they hit a home run whenever they whip out the waterworks. The animation, compared to the Western shows I've covered so far, is really something else. If we're talking general motion, it's noticeably very stiff everywhere except Pokemon battles. Character movements are very subtle, and their mouths flap open and shut without any real, animation. Where the series excels at, however, is with the presentation of its art style. You can rag on the generic look of anime all you want, but you can't deny that every background layer and every location has tons of care and detail poured into it. Additionally, I find it commendable that they were able to breathe life into all 151 original Pokémon. for better or worse. For those not in the know, the episode Electric Soldier Porygon had such visually hazardous strobe light effects that the episode itself was banned and the series' animation techniques were heavily repaired. Coincidence or not, the post-Porygon episodes are far less stiff and rigid than the first 40-odd episodes. The complaint I had about motion is far less noticeable as the season goes on, and it's nice to see a series whose animation improves over time, instead of getting even more static. So those are my thoughts on Pokémon Indigo League at large, but now it's time to reveal the episodes I think are the very best like no one ever was. Starting with the very first episode, Pokémon I Choose You. It does an excellent job of introducing you to the world of Pokémon, and making you care about Ash. I really want him to succeed in this journey by the time he stands up for Pikachu against the flock of Spearows. Another early classic is Showdown at Pewter City, introducing Brock and gym battles, as well as giving me a reason why I should care about them. Then there's Charmander, the stray Pokemon. I know I ragged on the guy, but the lengths Ash and his friends go to protect him are nothing short of heartwarming. Pokemon Shipwreck is one of the season's most intense episodes. I mean, Ash imagines himself drowning for Arceus' sake. But it's a fun time seeing everyone work together to escape the sinking St. Anne. One sub-arc later, you get Bye Bye Butterfree, one of the saddest slideshows I've ever seen. They did a good job of making Butterfree's departure a big deal, since he was Ash's first catch. It makes it seem like Ash is further maturing this way. Abra and the Psychic Showdown is one of the season's more surreal episodes, with a far more intimidating gym leader, Sabrina, and serious life-threatening consequences for Ash if he loses against her. Later on is Pokemon Fashion Flash, a guilty pleasure episode I must admit. It's about how dressing yourself and your pets up isn't always glamorous, a message that isn't meant to appeal to me, but I love where they go with it. The Bridge Bike Gang is another noticeably atmospheric episode, where Ash and his friends run into trouble with a bike gang, and it's fun learning that Team Rocket actually knows these guys. Any episode that gives them an extra little bit of backstory is always nice. Now entering the post-Porygon part of the season with Pikachu's Goodbye. A little manipulative since Pikachu caused the infamous strobe effect while Porygon was permabanned from the anime, but it's still an excellent and surprisingly comforting episode. Jigglypuff makes her debut in the Song of Jigglypuff, being a clever and entertaining introduction to her singing problem. It's a real blessing that she sticks around. Then there's Holy Matrimony. Holy Matrimony, Holy Matrimony. I can't stop laughing at this episode. James running away from his rich family is a sad story, but they managed to make it absolutely ridiculous by the time he and his friends are stuck in their mansion's torture chamber. I mean, what? The Ultimate Test, though far less strange, is another fun, silly breather episode, with Ash having to do something his audience is faced with every day. Learning. Back to excellent gym battle episodes with Riddle Me This and Volcanic Panic. The first episode being a fantastic build-up, and the second being a dramatic yet satisfying battle where Charizard's actually tolerable. Again, hoping I like him more if I continue watching. My favourite episode of the Indigo League arc is Battle of the Badge, where Ash goes back to the gym in good old Viridian City with a story that throws a lot at the wall, a little too much, but all of it sticks. Superb integration of Gary, Mewtwo, and the chemistry between Giovanni and Team Rocket. Moving on, Go West Young Meowth is essentially the little furball's backstory, explaining why he can talk while few other Pokemon can. It is very clear that this is what Japanese writers think all American movies are, but it's charming in how stock it is. The Indigo League takes place at the very end of the season, and despite my criticisms about its pacing, Round 1 Begin is a great episode, both by itself and as an introduction to how Pokemon Leagues work. Ash's opponents got a lot of character, and it's fun seeing Ash's Kingler in battle after over a year in sleep mode. Lastly, for highlights is the season finale, Friends to the End. I really like how after building up his confidence so high, Ash has to learn that he isn't a flawless trainer, and he can still be friends with the trainer he lost against. Plus, him exploring the stadium at the very end as the show's theme song blasts in the background is just about the best way to cap off a season ever. It's another soundtrack highlight, even if it's not my favourite theme song this show has to offer. So those were all quality league champions, but here's some episodes that just refuse to be caught. Starting with Ash Catches a Pokémon. It may be somewhat cute, but much of this is just Ash and Misty bickering in the forest. Furthermore, they could have cut down on the minute-long conversation between Pikachu and Caterpie. Yeah, the one that isn't even a conversation. Challenge of the Samurai is another early one that didn't fully get to me, mainly because the samurai himself is hard to like. I honestly can't tell if he's trolling Ash or just misunderstanding him. Either way, he's annoying. Now, Path to the Pokemon League, I just get really uneasy with the whole whipping angle. I know it's a tough Sandshrew being shocked and whipped, but still, there's no way a concept like this would be treated lightly today. Even reviewing it as a period piece isn't very fun. Mystery at the Lighthouse has a big problem in what it doesn't show. Things just come off as boring when it really hypes up this giant dragonite showing up, then it turns around and goes away. What did I do to deserve this? Then I just found Pokemon's sensation to be incredibly generic, as in, it's a very cliched boy hates girl stuff plot that also manages to shove in some gross out with gloom. I dig the climax where Ash has to save the gloom he finds so girly and smelly, but otherwise, pass. My least favourite episode so far has got to be the Kangaskhan kid, where this little Tarzan kid lives among a pack of Kangaskhan because his father, who's Mr. Monopoly for some reason, dropped him out of a helicopter. This doesn't feel like a Pokemon episode at all, I'll leave it at that. Showdown at Dark City, ketchup jokes notwithstanding, wasn't that interesting for me. When I look back on this show, the episode about a dark, gritty gang war isn't popping to mind. Later on, a Chansey operation has a neat premise of Ash and his friends needing to nurse some Pokemon, and it's okay for the most part, but could we make the head doctor a little more sympathetic, people? He just came off as lazy and inconsiderate to me. That just leaves the infamous friend and foe alike to talk about. It's my least favourite episode of the Indigo League climax, because it shows Charizard at his worst, just napping and costing Ash the league. I get that this is a fault on Ash's behalf since he didn't commit to much practice, but they could have put more effort into showcasing this dilemma in the 7 episodes they told us across. With all these criticisms out of the way, I can still say I've got positive things to say about most of the episodes in this season, save for 3. Just remember a couple things. Firstly, that is just my opinion. If you like the episodes I don't, then that's fine, don't let me bother you. And if you dislike the episodes I like, remember what I said at the start, that I'm not a hardcore anime fan at all. But from what I've seen in these first 80 or so episodes of the Pokemon anime, it got off to a strong start. I liked Ash as a character, I liked the jokes, and I liked the thought and effort that was put into making the original games a larger-than-life TV adventure. You may not see me head off to the Orange Islands for a little while yet, but rest assured, I'll like what I'm getting when I get there. Well, that's all I've got to say about Pokemon. Goodbye for now, you sick little monkeys.